Hi, my name is Rosemary Smith, and I am the Vice President of Human Resources for Durand. The following video pertains to Durand's information and policies as it relates to anti-harassment and sexual harassment in the workplace. Durand takes these complaints very seriously. If you have any further questions or you need any further clarification regarding any of the slides, my contact information will be at the end of the video. Thank you. We're here today to review Durand's unlawful harassment and discrimination in the workplace. We will address harassment and go over what is discrimination in the workplace and more specifically review Durand's policy. So some of the goals today are to sensitize everyone to the types of issues that can arise in the workplace. What are the laws that prohibit harassment in the workplace? We will recognize some specific forms of harassment, who can commit harassment, who can experience harassment, and understand what conditions harassment can occur. Before we begin, I have 10 pop quiz questions just so everyone can assess their knowledge. So we're going to make this interactive. If anyone wants to just go around the room, read the question, and then we can collectively, individually, whether or not it is true or false. So who'd like to begin? Anti-harassment laws cover personal workspaces. What I tell individuals is anything that comes into the workplace is fair game. The motive of the harasser does not matter. We look at it from the perspective of the victim. And based upon our experiences here at Durand, we have many different types of settings. We have an office setting like we're in now. We have group homes, which are more like homes, but is still a workspace. And sometimes the lines of communication get blurred there. And then we have a school and we have day programs. So what is considered joking may not be joking. I give an example. We had a situation a while ago at one of our facilities between two professional staff, male and female. And they would joke every day about food that was being brought into the workplace. And one day, the male worker said to the female worker, "Why are you eating that? You said you were on a diet." And that female worker, that particular day, did not find that funny and filed a claim. So you have to know your audience, you have to be able to read the room, but you also have to understand our personal backgrounds, and we have many different backgrounds here at Durand. We do provide cultural humility training for our workers. You cannot bring that into the workspace. We all come from different cultural backgrounds, different areas where we're raised, different ways that we raise. If you have children, all of that has to be kept outside of the workspace. The employer has an obligation to protect the employees. And we've had situations here where we've had UPS people, FedEx individuals constantly berating some of our workers. That is unacceptable. And if that happens, you as an employee have a right to complain. Flirting, if it's truly consensual, it does not violate the law. But again, you have to be very careful with that. And that is why, as we go through the slides, it's more important when you have a supervisor and a coworker. When you're in a supervisor and you are in a position of authority, it is very difficult you have to make sure you don't cross that line. It is false. You need more than a policy. So we have a policy. which is wonderful. But if we don't communicate that policy, we've gone halfway. So it's great to have a policy. You have to make sure your policy is up to date, but you have to act on the policy. We never ignore any type of a complaint. And as you know, we get complaints in many different forms. We can get a complaint via the complaint box that is located at all of our facilities. You can check off human resources. Someone can go online and file a complaint and check off human resources, and then it would get filtered to my area. Or the majority of the complaints that I get are via an email. But I would never ignore a complaint. And I'm going to go through what my process is as we go further down the slides. FOSS.
Really?
It's a little h, and we're going to go over big H, little h. Most of the complaints, actually the majority of the complaints that I get are little h. We have all, I am sure, worked in organizations where you've had a boss who's difficult. Could be yelling, screaming, belittling the worker. It's not illegal if it's not because of your protected class. That's the difference. So if someone is acting a certain way and they say, well, I'm being treated that way because of my gender, because of my race, that's a problem. But on the merits of its own, it is not illegal. It's called little h.
Harassment and discrimination. False.
That's right, because in New Jersey, we have individual liability. New Jersey is a very pro-employee state. So many of the federal laws that may not apply in New Jersey. Right. Making fun of someone because you think they were Jewish still violates the law. Why are we here today? Well, we're here for a number of reasons. One is obviously to do the training and educate our workforce. These types of issues are no joking matter. It costs money, it affects morale, productivity, teamwork, and may result in disciplinary action up to and including termination. And that disciplinary action goes both ways. I have terminated individuals for repeatedly filing claims that were unsubstantiated. So what are some of the laws and guidelines? There are two big areas that we really center or focus on this area. One is the Civil Rights Act, Title VII, which prohibits discrimination. And then you have the EEOC, the Equal Employment Opportunity, which is the enforcer of the Civil Rights Act, and they have produced guidelines on what is sexual harassment. The LAD, which is the Law Against Discrimination in New Jersey, is much broader in scope. And that basically says you can't harass because of transgender or if you're overweight. So someone did ask me in another segment whether or not if you work in a convenience store and you're not covered under the Civil Rights Act, or do these laws cover you? And the answer is yes. In New Jersey, the law against discrimination is very broad. So the Civil Rights Act covers employers with 15 or more employees. It's enforced by the EEOC, and it states that it's unlawful for an employer to discriminate against any individual with respect to his or her compensation, terms, conditions of employment because of race, color, religion, sex, sexual orientation. The EEOC, some of the relevant provisions, and the EEOC has many provisions in the guidelines, but some relevant provisions, it defines unwelcome sexual advances, requests for favors, it could be verbal or physical, conduct of a sexual nature. It constitutes harassment when it's the submission made either explicitly or implicitly as a term or condition of employment, or its submission to or rejection of such conduct by an individual is used as the basis for an employment decision. The conduct has the purpose or effect of interfering with an individual's work performance or creates a hostile work environment. The bottom line is the employer is responsible for the actions of its supervisors. We're going to talk about what a tangible employment action is. I'm going to go over who is a supervisor, what is the definition of a supervisor. And the employer also may be liable for conduct in non-employees if not corrected. So who is a supervisor? Someone that has the ability to hire, fire, promote, demote, change the terms and conditions of employment, or make economic decisions that affect the employee. Some examples of that: your pay can be affected, your benefits, a job title, your office, a reassignment, maybe from one group home to another group home, one shift to another shift, or failing to promote. If this occurs, the employer has no defense or limited defense. If it doesn't, the employer has to prove two things. One, did you take care to prevent the harassing behavior, and did the employee take advantage of it? And as we go through the slides, there's a whole interaction between the worker and the harasser, the victim, and myself. And a lot of times the employee may unreasonably fail to take advantage. You may come up with all different kinds of scenarios, and we may come to an agreement, and the employee may say, this isn't acceptable to me. But the bottom line is you have to communicate your policy. So what exactly is sexual harassment? The definition is it's conduct of a sexual nature in the workplace, unwelcome sexual advances or requests for a sexual favor. It could be verbal, it could be physical. Who can commit harassment? It could be a supervisor, it could be a subordinate, it could be a coworker, it could be a third party. Anyone can experience it. You could be a bystander, you could be a direct target. That's why, especially in an office setting, you could overhear something and find it to be a violation of the law, or what you think may be a violation, or you may be offended. Harassment can occur during work hours or non-work hours, like if we have a company-sponsored event. Sexual harassment, there's two types. There's quid pro quo, which is the more pervasive of the two, and hostile work environment. Quid pro quo is something for something. It usually occurs between a supervisor and an employee. So if you do this for me, I will do this for you. Hostile work environment is more typically what the types of complaints that usually we tend to see. It could be severe, it could be pervasive conduct, it could be something that is intimidating, it interferes with your job performance, and it can be created by anyone in the workplace. Types: it could be pictures, offensive calendars, jokes, it could be gestures. Power imbalances. Everyone interprets things based upon their own backgrounds and experiences. And more importantly, you can't be sure how someone will view your conduct. I always say, if you're in doubt, don't say it. Because if you have to think, should I say this in my head, you probably shouldn't say it. Does a hostile work environment exist? So when I get a complaint in, I will respond within 12 to 48 hours back to the worker who's complaining. Even if it's just, I got your email, I will look into this. As I go through the complaint, I'm going to look at how frequent the conduct was, and I will ask you this as well. How severe? Was it physically threatening or humiliating? Does it interfere with your work performance? The courts are going to look at, is the environment offensive? One that a reasonable person would find offensive. Was it a big H? Was it a little h? How frequent was it? How severe? Did it interfere with your work performance? The courts are going to look at, is the environment offensive? One that a reasonable person would find offensive. Was it a big H? Was it a little h? How frequent was it? How severe? Did it interfere with your work performance? Correcting common assumptions. The victim or the harasser may be of either sex. It can be someone other than the victim's direct supervisor. It could be another person that is in a position of authority. And you need not suffer economic injury as a result of the harassment. It could be emotional. It could be psychological. Tips. Avoid reference to a person's appearance. Avoid comments about sex, race, age, disability. Avoid off-color jokes. Avoid physical contact, and watch off-site travel and meetings if you're in a position where you are traveling. So what is Durand's policy? Our policy is in the handbook. The handbook is loaded in Paycom. Everyone always has access to the handbook. If you work in a specific program, the handbook is in all the offices in that program as well. So the group homes have an office, they have a copy of the handbook. The school has a copy of the handbook. The ATS programs have hard copies of handbooks. Our policy assures confidentiality as much as we can. Someone may email me and say, well, I don't want this to go any further. Well, I have to. Once you go through that door, I have to investigate it. It's the same as when we have a UIR on the DDD side. It has to be investigated. We assure a prompt investigation as much as the parties are available, fairness, disciplinary action if appropriate, and no retaliation. A lot of times people will say, well, I want to make sure it's confidential, but I have to tell the person who you're complaining. I have to in order to go through the process. And then we will have an investigation. People are afraid of retaliation. Everything is documented and a report is filed. So if someone comes back to me in 6 months, says, I'm having a problem with my supervisor, I filed a complaint and now my supervisor wants to transfer me, I will go back and I will look and I will maybe talk to the supervisor to say, let's talk about why we want to transfer this worker. So as much as people are always afraid of retaliation, we do stress that we want people to feel safe at their job, and you should not be afraid of retaliation. The goal of the policy is to be sensitive to the employees and their rights, be responsive in how we receive complaints, and active in maintaining a fair and respectable workplace. If you are a victim, if you send me an email, I am going to say to you to definitely provide the facts. I will ask you when we meet, did you tell the person to stop? Did you feel comfortable telling the person to stop? Who, what, when, where, how frequent, and any witnesses. The more information you can give me, the quicker we will go through the process. Some irrational beliefs. If I speak up, he or she may get mad. I don't want to appear rigid. I am afraid of my job. I am afraid of retaliation. Again, our policy does go over all that. I will sit down as I do the investigation. I go over the policy. I have everyone sign off again on our anti-harassment policy that you've been retrained. But I will say, once I file a report, I will then get back to the person and say it's either substantiated or it's not substantiated. I will not go into the nitty-gritty of, well, the person was terminated or the person was suspended for 3 days. I basically say to the worker, we handled it, it was substantiated, it was unsubstantiated, and then I will get back with the individual as well and say, the harasser, and say, well, this is what we need to do, whether it's a discipline, whether it's training. So your rights are to feel safe on the job, let the harasser know that you're offended. If you're comfortable in doing that, ask the behavior to stop, report it, and more importantly, to expect a change.